Hi everyone, welcome to JHC and Friends, my live. So really excited to have my next guest. I know it's been a while. I didn't have a show in January. It's been crazy for me since the new year started, and I'm really thankful that Mike can join me today. He is a UX designer and design director and creative director. Super talented. He is an FSU grad and he's been a designer for over 25 years. He was a UX architect for Kyra Solutions, he is now, sorry, excuse me. He is a former UX lead for WeatherStem and a former design director for Homes.com. So I'm really happy to have you on today to talk about your story through all of these years of UX design. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, Julia. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So the question of questions is, what brought you to Tallahassee? I'm guessing FSU.
Yeah, FSU for sure. Florida boy all my life. Grew up in Miami and started taking art classes down there as a kid. High school was in Live Oak, Florida, between here and Jacksonville, home of the Busy Bee, where most people stop en route to the airport in Jacksonville. But yeah, came to Tallahassee for college, studied graphic design and advertising, did a double major, and expected I'd probably go to a larger city like back to Miami or Atlanta where a lot of friends went, but I got my first job in town and I've stayed in town ever since. I was thinking about it. I kind of feel like my career path is like a zip line with obstacles or something. You go like from one tree to the next tree, which has been companies for me, every 5 years or so. But yeah, like you said, the past, over 6 years now with Kyra Solutions. And it's a great team. Happy to be working there now.
So you understood UX design way before it became like a mainstream thing, I believe. Like, was it always called that? Like, tell me more about the history of UX design.
That is a great question. I'm going to guess the term came from Don Norman out of his work with Apple back in the day. So that would be like 90s-ish, I guess. And so I started working doing interface design about that time. We didn't call it user experience design. It was like graphical user interfaces or human computer interfaces or that sort of thing. But it was taking the visual design that I had studied, graphic design at FSU, and applying it to screens instead of paper or billboards or TV ads or whatever. Same design principles and elements, with, I guess, the added component of interaction design, which is also a thing. I did not study interaction design at all. I've learned that over the course of my career.
I think I find that a lot of people come from different backgrounds and then eventually discover UX design, right? And then get into it. I hear it's pretty competitive now.
I think so. I've talked with a few folks who have gone through boot camps like General Assembly. And while they are able, thankfully, to get work, there's a lot more people out there. And I mean, as you know, like, I don't know what the total number is from all the major tech firms like Facebook and Amazon, like tens of thousands of people laid off in our world. And not, I mean, only a fraction of that, I guess, are UXers, but still, it's got to be a lot. And yeah,
Right.
it's more competitive now.
Yeah, so did you feel like you've always wanted to do, and I've heard of it being also called human computer interaction majors or something like that, like very similar along those lines. So did you feel like you wanted to get into UX design even though it wasn't called that, or did you kind of stumble on it?
So one of the majors at FSU for me was actually not called graphic design, but you might expect. It was called visual communication. And I really loved that framing of design, communicating with visuals. And so that was definitely woven into where I was headed, regardless of what that might have been. I happened to kind of stumble into applying visual communication to screens as my first ever job. So in that sense, I stumbled into it, but I've loved visual communication and drawing and all of that sort of stuff for a long, long time. In fact, and I also have loved like helping people do things. And this rewinds back to me, like my first job ever was a bag boy at Publix. My dad was a store manager. This is down in Miami. And like the whole ethos of Publix is in part helping people find stuff, which translates totally into like navigation design for UX. So, I mean, maybe that's a stretch, but that kind of blend of helping people find things, do things, use tools, mashed up with visual communication is a part of that goes way back for me. Like
I
DNA.
really love that, and I'm a huge fan of Publix. So anyone who works there, I like highly regard anybody who works there. So yes, but I love that example because I find that as a designer and someone who really likes clear communication and likes to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understands what's going on, whatever the context is. I feel like it's so important, and in some cases, design is undervalued in what you know is done and done for people, and people misunderstand like, oh, you're a designer, and people don't understand it's more than just the visual side, right? A lot
Absolutely.
goes into it, the work behind it, and organizing everything.
Yeah, a part of something that, I don't know, there's ways in which we try to educate people about what we do and nudge them to think maybe a little bit differently. And one moment for sure that I know it's time for me to have a talk is when I'm asked to make something look pretty. And so the framing of that question in generally it's like I haven't worked with this person much, and so it's time to reach out and talk and like let's dig deeper into the problem and what's really going on and all of those kinds of questions. And it's usually just kind of a friendly warming up kind of a conversation. Like this is more than just decoration at the end of a much longer process. Design happens at the very beginning when you're even trying to imagine what the problem really is to begin with.
It's really true. I mean, it takes time. They think like, well, why can't you just like whip it up really quick?
That's right. Snap your fingers, make it pretty,
Right,
give me
right,
goosebumps. Right,
right,
right.
exactly. I mean, even what I love about it, and I love like this whole term of customer experience marketing too, because I feel like it all ties together.
Yeah.
Communication, the user experience, and interaction to whatever. Like it's a physical. It can be a physical place. It can be the experience of purchasing something online, right? It's very applicable in everything we touch and interact with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for you at your role, tell me a little bit more about, I guess, your journey through your career, because it's been
Yeah,
25 years.
it has. It's been a while. So I began working with larger teams. I think what I'll do is just sort of maybe break my career path into two large chunks. One was working with teams, and the other is working by myself as a UX team of one. So I'll back up to my time with Homes.com, and I was a manager of a team, a design director of a team of both designers and for a little bit developers as well. And working with a large application, it's kind of monolithic. Homes.com was like realtor.com or like Zillow, just a humongous database of houses, lots of employees, big sales team, big customer support team, database people, project managers, marketing team, and I was a part of the design team. And so what I guess I loved about that was working with other designers, sharpening one another as a team of designers. And then we were kind of, in a sense, like a hub as a UX/design group. And each of the spokes reached out to like the marketing team to get feedback on what people were saying, or the customer service team getting feedback for sure on what people maybe were grumpy about or whatever. But you're just able to learn through these other teams, and then working with the product development team and the data team or the technical side of things. It was a really enjoyable time of, again, sort of this cross integration, cross team pollination, and then also working with these other designers. It enabled us to go like deep down with one product. And so you're able to pay attention to teeny tiny details and make something really as great as you want it to be. And so that was a great experience. And I, for the past 10 years, have been a UX team of one. There's a book written by someone named Leah Bully, and that's the title of the book, A User Experience Team of One. I love that book. And by contrast, while I still do application, user experience, user interface work, because it's just me in terms of visual communication and design. I'm also working with the marketing team on trade show booth design or whatever thing, that social media posts, and then I'm working with our business development team, building out diagrams for slide decks or one pagers to leave behind or send to a prospective client. But most of my time is with the application development team. I'm doing a lot of prototype development. I typically use Adobe XD. I know I need to learn Figma. Maybe they're going to become the same thing later this year after the purchase. I don't know. But anyway, so a lot of prototype creation, and then also a lot of sort of front end. I don't want to call it coding, but like writing HTML and CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, but working with our like legit developers in the process of building the actual applications. So where with homes.com, it was like one product, go deep, deep, deep. With what I'm doing now at Kyra, and also previously at WeatherStem, but totally in total the past 10 years, I'm very broad, very broad. And so I kind of hunger for the depth. But when I was at homes.com, sometimes I hungered for some breadth to go a little wider, you know? So anyways, but that's where I am right now.
It's funny that you brought that up, because I actually was going to ask you that question about, I feel like the thing about UX designers, or maybe it's designers, I think there's this unique skill set that y'all have, and that is, and I'd like to put myself in this boat because some people say that I do.
You do. You are in that boat,
Well,
yes.
well, it's that you can look at the big picture, but you can also zoom into the detail. And it's not many people are like that.
Yeah.
So for you being an expert in the field, like, how can you identify that person when you're like looking to hire that person, or can you grow to become that person if that's what you want to do? Because I love UX design too. I just don't have time to get into it, and I don't call myself a UX designer.
Yeah, I mean, another way to frame it, like the breadth versus depth, would be a generalist versus a specialist. And so if I sensed, so I would go on with the need of the project or the sense of where the future of the company was headed. If I sensed we needed someone to be like, for example, a ridiculously talented JavaScript programmer who could code UI interactions in ways that are better or more flexible than what you can get off the shelf from like Bootstrap or other frameworks that have these components that are really nice, but if you want to change them, it's not so easy, you know? So someone who could do that, that would be a specialist that would be super deep into the way of JavaScript coding and interaction design, versus as I mentioned, I'm very much broad. If I just wanted to sort of duplicate myself and have another generalist, because that seemed to help balance things out, then so it would be which one do I sense the need for at the moment? And I don't know that I have a clear answer in terms of where we're headed with Kyra, but I suspect it would be someone who would become more of a specialist. I don't know, this is a contradiction, but like a marketing team designer, or a business development team designer, or you know what I'm doing, like the application team designer. There's still some breadth, a little bit of depth. Might in the case of Kyra, now not every company is that way. Like startups probably need a generalist straight out, but big, large companies that have an established application might want someone who can be a very specific person to go super deep and, you know, be the best of all, whatever, that, you know, designer doing user interface design and interaction design.
I like to thank Karine for hopping on. She's giving UX designers some love here. She said, yes, marketing is about building relationships between people and solutions. UX is essential. And then she said that UX designers are intuitive as well. It's really true. So what do you, and this makes me, you know what I'm going to ask about, and this makes me wonder, what do you think about the whole AI trend that's going on with ChatGPT? Is that something that'll affect UX designers too? Like, it's affecting marketers already.
Yeah, it's got to affect us somehow. I'm not exactly sure. I stumbled upon one this morning. I get like regular news feeds from like various UX centric organizations like Smashing Magazine, which I love, and others. And there was one in the feed this morning, and it's like a sketch. It's probably even called, it's not called, it's like Scribble AI or something, but you basically you upload a line art drawing and put in a prompt, and it sort of fills in the details for you. So that's just, I don't know, that maybe not news to everyone, but it was news to me this morning. And I've dabbled with Dolly too. And what's the other one?
Midjourney.
Yeah, Midjourney.
Yeah.
They're kind of fun. And so at this point, feels to me like a novelty to play around with. And in ways, it's a little bit unsettling. Like, oh my goodness, it just did that, you know?
Yeah.
But I suspect it's going to be an augmenting tool and not a replacement kind of tool. Like I've even seen some prompts where design a dashboard that's going to give business exec, you know, and it does. It spits out this dashboard looking thing. But that's really all it is a dashboard looking thing. And it has no connection to like the business needs, because it's not able to make those connections. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat, like where it's cool. I think it's really cool that it can save time. But at the same time, you know, now it makes you question, like, okay, where's the value behind certain things that gets done that way and the approach? And but I still think obviously it doesn't replace the human side of the process, and even the person behind the tool has to have some kind of moral value, whatever they end up using it for.
I don't know if this is a great example, but I'm also thinking like back in the day, there wasn't a whole lot of stock stuff, stock photography, stock illustration. And so illustrators or photographers were really needed, and they still are, but there's so much good stock stuff now that you can just go grab. And so I feel like if I was an illustrator, I probably would be more squirmy about all the AI stuff that's going on related to visualizations. Or I don't know, maybe even as a writer with ChatGPT, because it's doing like these crazy things with paragraphs, and now there's like plagiarism stuff going on, like students and the Turnitin or whatever that tool is that works with students on their essays and stuff has to now try to make sense of whether or not the student actually wrote the thing. That's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but
it's okay. It's still interesting.
Anyway,
everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Kareen is right. Kareen says AI tools can't beat strategy and innovation. It's absolutely true. And I mean, I'm the one kind of bringing us into this direction, but I want to talk about your projects too. So tell me a little. I know you do so much, and how do you manage? And so you've worked on even building a community, Refresh Tallahassee. It's been around for how many years now?
Yeah, this is nuts. In 2005, I had to look it up. I went to the Wayback Machine to see like when did we stand up our first website. And it was 2006, but technically it started the year before. So crazy. But yeah, that was from the homes.com days. A guy named Stephen Caudle, who's from Tallahassee, he's now out in, I think, Boulder, has founded a company named Origami. Anyways,
cool.
He nudged me one day at homes.com like, hey, there's this thing happening in various cities. It's called Refresh. And it's kind of related to, I don't know if back in the day, it's still a thing, but CSS Zen Garden was a thing. And so you would take this HTML file and write your own CSS to it to show that CSS could make any HTML design look however you wanted it to. And so it was sort of in that whole time frame. And we saw like, hey, there's one in Dallas and there's one in whatever, Philadelphia and Miami, and let's make one in Tallahassee. So we started. It's not an official organization. So we just kind of shot from the hip and got together and started talking shop when the spirit moved. There is not a fixed schedule for Refresh meetings, and that's translated to probably a handful of meetings each year. Most of those are sort of a typical meetup format where you get together and you catch up a little bit, and then someone gives a presentation about a thing that they're interested in that everyone in the group hopefully would be interested in as well. And then some networking afterwards and go home. And
I liked it. I mean, I went to the first one, I think with, I hadn't been to one for many years. And
Glory Days Grill, maybe? Because that was like the show and tell version of a meeting where we get together and grab lunch and then just go around the room, around the table, and if you want to show a project, get some feedback or whatever, you go for it. So we'll probably do that again in the coming months. Our next meetup, we're hoping to have a workshop related to collaboration. David Lemieux, who's new-ish to Tallahassee, maybe a year or two.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm hoping to get to work with David on that. At our peak of what felt like we were a big thing was, goodness, already 10 years ago, but we had a big conference at the Clayman Plaza at the IMAX Theater downtown. We partnered with a great group of people from Columbia, South Carolina. It was called the Converge Conference.
Oh, cool.
It went for about a decade. It's not a thing anymore, unfortunately, but it was so great. We had speakers fly in, and in the IMAX theater, like giving a presentation in the IMAX. It was crazy. The biggest slides ever projected behind them. We even did something in the planetarium. So it was.
So you were all about that.
It was a big deal. Yeah, you do too. I know you do from
well,
Startup
now,
Week last year.
You saw what I did in Startup Week. Oh my gosh. Yep. You did
anyway.
it.
But I suspect for the coming year, I mean, during COVID, we just shut down totally. We went quiet for 2 years. I'd send out an email newsletter every now and then, but we're trying to get rolling again. So hopefully we'll have another handful of meetings in the coming year.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, hey, it's probably one of the longest running community groups, centered around designers, creatives, tech folks. And it's not easy to maintain that. So I appreciate that.
No, it's really helped to not have a fixed monthly schedule. I think we would have burned out a long time ago if we would have adhered. Nothing wrong with that. But just kind of like when you feel like the gas is refilled in the tank, you're ready to have another meeting, you've talked to someone who's interested in a thing, and then it kind of comes and happens. So that's worked for us.
So what is it that you are working on now? And I mean, whatever's, obviously what you can share in the public that you're excited about.
Right. So yeah, Refresh is sort of a hobby. That's a side thing. The normal for me with Kyra, right now, I'm working entirely-ish with our transportation side of the house. We're kind of split in two. Kyra is. Half of the company that is building applications are using Salesforce, working with state agencies to do things like get a license or a permit or certified in a thing. So the regulatory space, Kyra, by the way, it works entirely with the public sector. So government agencies at the city, county, state, probably soon at the federal level. But just government. And so that side, the regulatory side with licensing and permitting and inspections is almost 100% Salesforce, standing up Salesforce instances for people. And so my UI and UX work there, which is diminishing significantly. But while I was doing it, it was reimagining, like Salesforce has portals, customer-facing portals that you can design and make it look kind of sort of any way you want. There are some limitations, but yeah, so it's a fantastic tool, Salesforce is. So we use that, and then a lot of the development work happens on the back end, the admin side, but I work with the front end side of our Salesforce implementations. And then, as I was mentioning, almost all of my work now is not there. It's with the transportation side of what we do, and we have our own custom software that interfaces with, it's like all about highway safety and traffic management, and just transportation in general. So a lot of work with Turnpike and DOT and highway safety and various other travel related agencies. You may have noticed, I don't know, last time you took a trip, like you might start noticing there's more than just cameras on the roadway anymore. There's like all these other sensors that are starting to pop up on the roadway, paying attention to what's happening with all kinds of traffic events like accidents or wrong way driving, or you're driving too fast on a curve for the off ramp, all of these events, and there's so many. Sensors are trying to pay better attention to that, to both alert the driver and the traffic management center about things that are happening. Other examples would be like where there's work zones, construction zones, and they want to let you know in plenty. And yes, they will continue to still use the big orange signs and the other forms of communication to the motorists, like, hey, you're going to need to change lanes, you're going to need to slow down, pay attention, there's people working really close to where you're driving, drive safely. That form of communication will also begin to happen like on CarPlay or on your mobile phone if you're like using Waze or something to navigate while you're on your trip. Other forms of communication, and that's a part of what we're doing, is tying all of these devices together with traffic management centers, with
That's great.
people using devices on the roadway.
Does that mean also that there could be a chance that people could know that there's deer on the road, like nearby?
Like, you mean like that's beautiful to take a look at, or hopefully not like the deer that just
No,
got hit
like
by
to
a truck?
avoid, because
To
you know,
avoid the
like
deer.
that's one of my fears when I'm driving at night. I would love that I get notification
Hmm.
like, oh, there's deer like 5 miles
Hmm.
down the road, because
Isn't that
there's
the
been
truth?
times where we see them parked, like they're eating grass on the side, and I'm on the freeway going 60 miles per 70, probably more.
Yeah, yep, yep,
You
yep.
know, and
A
then
little
like
bit.
I actually did hit one in town when I was going only 30, and that
Hmm.
was like shocking. And so I
It,
can imagine. And there's a
yeah,
lot of,
yeah.
accidents on the road with that.
So
So
I will say that I have worked up an icon because a part of the UI is this map display. And so I'm having to create icons for all of these different types of roadway events. And I do have an icon with a deer on it. I don't think it's in production yet. And I'm
yes,
not sure if it's going to represent, hey, there is a dead animal on the side of the road, watch out. Or if it's like it's probably going to be more like wildlife crossing zone, pay attention.
yeah,
Not necessarily like, oh, there is a deer in 1
yeah.
mile, so careful.
I
We'll
mean, I
see.
could see where
Maybe
like
that's
that
coming.
might be a little bit complicated touching on, because I could see if it doesn't work or function well as accurately as it should, that could pose problems. So I
Mm-hmm.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know we're running down to a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you too, like, having been in Tallahassee, and I know you also are, it sounds like you also do some side work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you provide consultation, and do you travel for that? And why do you stay in Tallahassee?
So all of my business travel relates to Kyra and sort of normal getting around. And I don't travel much. I used to with homes.com, but not nearly as much over the past few years. Um, I do kind of like early bird side work, side hustle, but that's more like for friends and family, like nonprofits and stuff, helping do a lot of WordPress related website help for people, or logo design or that kind of thing. But it doesn't take up a whole lot of my time. But that's fun because it's different. And getting back to the breadth versus depth, sometimes doing the freelance side of what I do just kind of sparks some things for me that I don't necessarily wouldn't get in the normal 9 to 5. So I'm thankful for that and those sparks and just kind of continuing to learn, which is like in a good way, a never ending thing. There's a learning always. And yes. So, staying curious about whatever it is, I think is a really helpful thing, certainly for
That's
me.
great. No, it's
Um,
true. I love that. Like,
So yeah, I'm not sure how that would translate to. Did you have other angles with your question, or was it more just a sort of a curiosity about what normal looks like?
yeah, yeah, actually, it's always curiosity for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And just like, you know, um, how you juggle all of it, like work-life balance, and I like how you said that it helps you with the creative side of things, and just kind of it
Hmm.
sparks some inspiration,
Yeah.
and I think for us, we might get bored of certain things, and it's good to
Hmm.
have a variety to just kind of keep the juices flowing,
Yeah.
and
And I
having new
will.
perspectives.
I'll loop back to a part of your question that I didn't address, and like why Tallahassee for the whole shebang. And so my wife and I have 4 kids, and we love
I didn't even
Tallahassee.
four.
And yeah, you do too, right?
Yes.
So, anyways, here's to parenting a large
Yes.
family. Um, but just as I mentioned at the very beginning about like the zip line course and from tree to tree, and like you meet people, and so I've developed friendships, and I'm super thankful for the design community and the larger creative community in Tallahassee. Um, So it's been a great city, and I love more broadly, like the nature around here. The Forgotten Coast in particular is one of my favorite sections of the whole state of Florida. I mean, even growing up in Miami, which I love. So it's a
Wow,
really
you were big
beautiful
city.
place.
And then having, yeah, settled down in here. It's no, it's really grown on me. The people are amazing. Tallahassee is unique in that way. They say that, and it's true, I've witnessed it. They say that we have one of the biggest hearts. Um,
Yeah.
like whenever someone visits, they're like, I can see the heart of this community is just so passionate about,
Hmm.
you know, supporting people. And the creative community is also amazing, very, very supportive of one another. And the entrepreneurial ecosystem is growing. There's some exciting things coming
Yeah.
down the pipe. Can you just imagine? Like you've seen it all. You know, I've only been here for maybe 11 plus years and seen a lot of change already, but you've seen it all from even over the course of a longer period. So it's really exciting.
It is for sure.
Is there anything you'd like to end with before we close?
No, I just really appreciate talking with you and all the work that you do, continue to do in the design community in town. So thank you for that. And I am happy to connect with folks and would love if anyone wanted to say hello or talk shop or ideas for upcoming Refresh Tallahassee events. I'd love to hear that or to meet new people. So yeah, thanks, Julia.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on my little humble show and have this conversation. And it's really true. Mike is very approachable. You gotta go check out his next event with Refresh Tallahassee. And if you happen to be free tonight and you catch this recording and you happen to see this recording, we do have a ribbon cutting at Innovation Park. The newly renovated space, formerly
Mhm.
known as Collins Building, is now Idea Lab, and I've been working with them there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you. I saw that you signed up, Mike. Thank you so
Looking
much.
forward to it. Yep.
There's going to be some great people there. And so with that, I will go ahead and end the broadcast. Follow us on social. We have several guest lines up for the next several weeks and happy to connect some more. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks. You too.